Medieval Life by Alec, Kaitlin, Brianna, Mike, and Julianna. Feudalism. Developed in Western Europe. Political system. Highly decentralized, stressed alliances of mutual protection between monarchs and nobles, based on giving land to nobles in exchange for loyalty and military aid. Feudalism took hold in northern France around AD 900 and spread through the rest of Western Europe. Above you'll see a diagram with the king on top, nobles, vassals, and the knights on the bottom. Feudalism relationships. Charles Martel learns cavalry. He wants it, but it's expensive. To pay for it, he uses fiefs. Fiefs are warriors. Below, you will see a fief. Above is Charles Martel. Feudalism relationships. By AD 900, such arrangements among nobles and monarchs emerged as feudalism. Lords who had granted fiefs were allowed to pass their lands on to their heirs. Feudalism relationships were like a pyramid. The king was on top, and in the middle were various of lords. Each ruler was a vassal. Vassals are nobles who serve the lord. Feudal obligations. Lord and vassal were made official in a solemn ceremony known as homage. The most important obligation was military services. Vassals agreed to provide his lord with a certain number of knights for 40 to 60 days each year. Vassals pledged to pay ransom in the event of the lord's capture in battle. Below you will see a diagram of the ceremony of homage. Castles for defense. Because of the lack of a strong central government, warfare occurred frequently in feudal society. As a result, a noble built a castle or fortified manor house for defense against enemies. Castles were wooden buildings with high fences of logs and mounds of hard-packed earth around them. AD 1100 castles were built of stone with thick walls and turrets or small towers. Castles were built on a hill or mound surrounded by a deep moat. Castles had a keep which was located at the strongest part of the castle, which contained many rooms, a nail, and a dungeon. It was a large area of banning. Becoming a knight. A nobleman's son becomes training for knighthood at age 7. They begin as a page in the house of the lord. At age 15, they become a squire and practiced using weapons. Once he proved himself in battle, the squire is knighted in an elaborate ceremony. The behavior of knights is governed by the code of chivalry. It told the knights to be brave in battle, fight fairly, keep promises, defend the church, and treat women of noble birth in a courteous manner. A feudal lord's wealth came from peasants or slaves that lived and worked on his land. In the Middle Ages, manorialism became an agricultural production. Lords and peasants were provided food, shelter, and protection. Estates varied from several hundred to several thousand acres. This included the lord's house, pastures for livestock, crop fields, forest areas, and or a village from peasants. Increased production. The manorial system produced only enough food to feed the peasants and the lord. Improvements were made, however, because of the famine, there was less of a threat. A new, heavier plow is an example of an improvement. It made deeper holes in the ground. It decreased work time for peasants as well. Instead of splitting parts of land into 2 fields, one of which lay unsown each year. In AD 1000, farmers had 3 fields: winter break, spring veggies, and a third was fall wheat. They rotated fields each year. Work on a manor. Peasants provide services for the Lord in return for protection. Chief among the obligations were to farm the Lord's land and make various payments of goods. Every time a peasant grew a grain at the Lord's mill, he had to leave a portion for the Lord. Peasants also had to set aside a number of days to provide types of labor such as road or bridge repair. Work on a manor. Because of warfare, trade was impossible, so most peasants herded sheep or farmed. Peasants rarely left the manor. Peasants were serfs. Serfs were people who were bound to the manor, plus couldn't leave it without permission. Serfs weren't slaves. They couldn't be sold apart from the land they lived on. Peasant life. Medieval Europeans believed all people were equal in the eyes of God. Society was viewed as a hierarchy ranked from the top to the bottom. Each person had duties. In general, people didn't question their duties. However, they thought that the system lacked freedom and opportunity. Peasant life, Part 2. Poverty and hardship characterized peasant life, and few serfs lived beyond age 10. Famine and disease are constant dangers. Invading knights trampled crops and burned villages, caused famine, and people lost lives. To support warlords might require additional payments of crops and labor. Peasant life, Part 3. Serfs lived in one-room houses with dirty floors, no chimney, and 1 to 2 crude pieces of furniture, table, and stands. They slept huddled together for warmth. They ate coarse bread and a few vegetables from their gardens, and grain for porridge made up their usual diet, and meat was rare. Peasant life, Part 4. In spite of their challenges, peasants could relax on Sundays. For fun, they sung, danced, and played sports, like wrestling and archery. Other amusements included religious plays, pageants, etc. The end. Peasant assessment questions. What do the peasants do for a living? Who are the serfs? What age did they become a squire? When did the nobleman's son become training for knighthood? What did the manorial system produce?